Believe it or not, early attachment work developed in part from the theories of evolution by Charles Darwin. John Bowlby is considered to be the father of attachment theory, and he was highly influenced by the writings of Darwin and his own research. In his early writings, Bowlby stated that he believed human beings have bonding behaviors that are pre-wired for relational experience. He also believed that when things go wrong and the environment fails a young human, the emotional development of the child is delayed and abnormal behavior is observed. It was at this time that he introduced the term attachment to describe the bonding he saw as necessary for human development with innate relationship-seeking behavior patterns like babbling, looking, and listening. He described it as a complex developing process, much like that of love, and developed through the process of natural selection. Bowlby believed the attachment system does not exist for the purpose of creating love or healthy emotional connections later in life. It does exist because of its survival value, because without them the child will perish. In this context, when we discuss attachment, we are discussing the theory of attachment that begins in infancy and builds as children grow into young adults and focuses on how a person attaches to his or her primary caregivers. The way an individual attaches to his or her primary caregivers creates an imprint of how that person attaches to others through adulthood. Insecure attachments can create codependent or overly independent adults. A lot of the time, our attachment style can predict our mistakes and what type of situations cause us pain or to react poorly. Attachment research was first initiated by John Bowlby, who noticed behaviors of young children in reaction to their mothers in the park. He also studied children separated from their parents during childhood and adolescence, either to attend boarding school or due to active war zones. His research was furthered by Mary Ainsworth, who identified the first 3 types of attachment. Mary Main identified the 4th type. The bonds of attachment create a safe haven for young children and infants. Having a safe haven creates self-reliance and a sense of sympathy and helpfulness to others in distress. The bonds are created through attunement. What's attunement, you ask? Well, think about a choreographed dance routine on Dancing with the Stars. The contestants are great in how well they work together, how well they can read one another and react appropriately for the situation. The better attuned they are to one another, the better their performance will be. This is attunement. Attachment grows from the level of attunement between an infant and its primary caregiver, the main person tasked with taking care of the baby. The better tuned the primary caregiver is to the baby, its every cry and coo and gurgle, the better the baby will attach itself to the primary caregiver. What this turns into is the baby's ability to trust the caregiver as it grows into a child, and that level of trust is then translated to other people in the child's life. The trust that develops is that the caregiver will be there for the child when they need help and teaches the child how to ask for help. This is how attachment teaches people social skills, and those with poor attachment can be overly dependent or independent. Attunement builds something referred to as agency, which is the knowledge that your actions can change how you feel and how others respond to you. There are 4 main types of attachment that fall into 2 main categories: secure versus insecure, and then organized versus disorganized. Those with secure attachment typically have good boundaries with others, can ask for help when it's needed, are tuned in with themselves. Secure attachment is organized, meaning when the individual was a child, he or she could predict if and when his or her primary caregiver would be there and how that person would react. Still under-organized, but not secure attachments are 2 insecure types of attachment: ambivalent and anxious. These types of attachment are opposite one another, with ambivalent being overly independent and unable to ask for help, while anxious is typically dependent or codependent and somewhat helpless. Both have a difficult time with relationships and can push people away with their typical behavior patterns, either being overly needy and annoying, or by being too isolated and not letting anyone to get close to them. In both situations, their upbringing was somewhat organized and that they knew what to expect from their caregivers for the most part, and their behavior is a reflection of what they learned to do to obtain the help that they needed. The fourth attachment type is not secure and not organized, and thus was labeled disorganized. Now, disorganized does not mean these people are people who live in messy homes. When Mary Main coined the term disorganized, she stated that these were children and infants that did not meet criteria to be categorized into the other three categories. Disorganized attachment typically forms in households where there is a lot of stress, whether it be from finances, physical danger and violence, like living in a violent neighborhood or war zone, or physical, emotional, and or sexual abuse. Often a parent who is being triggered into their own trauma or unable to manage their own stress in or around their child may appear scary and unpredictable to the child. When a parent appears scary and unpredictable, the child will be unable to bond to them in a healthy way and a predictable way. Disorganized attachment can then appear for a period where the family is in excessive stress, but can go away once the family stress is reduced, such as after a significant death in the family, job loss, or significant family move. When the family stress is not eliminated and a child grows up in a significantly chaotic and scary environment, then the disorganized attachment style remains with the child, and they exhibit a chaotic attachment to those around them. They are typically very anxious and very independent. They can also feel uncomfortable in organized or secure places. They tend to feel somewhat comfortable in unhealthy and disorganized environments because they become comfortable in high stress situations. Remember, comfortable is not always healthy. It's important to note that attachment systems are not bound by socioeconomic status or culture, meaning someone who is raised in a home with two parents and stable finances could still develop disorganized or insecure attachment. The most important aspects of an environment that will create secure attachment is feeling seen, heard, supported, and loved in a consistent, dependent, and reliable way. Mary Main did not just identify the disorganized attachment style. She also identified the main product created through the attachment system, the internal working model. An internal working model is the template through which we interact with others in our world with regards to support and assistance. Another way to think about it is that secure means secure in the fact that I can take care of myself and ask for help when it's needed. Insecure means I'm not secure in asking for help or for helping myself. Secure is created when a child is given the appropriate amount of independence and support for each of the stages of his or her development for that child.